Hey there everyone, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry Ray. Now, up to the last video, I've been saying that this was the final volume for the Higurashi When They Cry series on Steam. However, I came across one that apparently was attached to this, but according to what I've read, it just wasn't good. So, whatever. Anyways, last time Rika punched Satoko after she stole the ancient, well, not really ancient, the old transcripts and that she was trying to decipher. And now she's in the school nurse's office. Well, whatever. She's being looked at. Anyways, let's continue. What you're saying is, this isn't your world? That's right. I need to get back to my original world, because this one isn't mine. I can see why you'd want to return to such a fun-sounding Hinamizawa as soon as you could. But is there even a way to do that? There is, but it's very hard to find. I see. And what do you have to do? A fragment is lost somewhere in Hinamizawa, I think. Because of that fragment, Hanyu, or I should say, Oyashiro-sama, can't come to this world and bring me back. Oyashiro-sama? You mean the deity worshipped at the Furude Shrine? It would take too long to explain, but basically, yes. I've traveled through countless worlds with her. This world just happens to be one of the ones I drifted to. So as soon as she can get here, I plan on leaving. That escalated pretty quickly. In other words, normally you and Oyashiro-sama would come to this world together. But Oyashiro-sama, the one with the power to bring you out of this world, can't get in for some reason. Which means you've been left behind. Like a boat that drifted ashore. Generally speaking, yes. The fragment blocking her is somewhere in Hinamizawa. If I don't find it and burn it, I can't go back to my old world. Where might that fragment be? Somewhere. A fragment is feelings, so it has to be something with those in it. I don't know what kind of object it resides in, and there's no proof it's in an object at all. It could be inside a person. I just don't know. You said you'd burn it if it was an object, right? What would you do if it was a person? Hanyu said if it was a person, killing them would amount to the same thing. I'm praying the fragment isn't residing in a person. Who is this Hanyu? A new character. You've been talking about her. No, oh. Oh, it's another name for Oyashiro-sama. Hanyu is actually her real name. I think Oyashiro-sama was just a name the villagers gave her later on. I see. Was that written in the book you were reading? No, not exactly. Yamamoto's arms remained folded, and he groaned in thought. Another silence settled, with rain being the only audible sound. Maybe I'd gotten nervous. I knew it wouldn't solve anything to talk about it, but I did anyway. Yamamoto was probably wondering if something was wrong with my brain. I could guess that by looking at his complicated expression. Do you think you'll find the fragment? I don't know. Since it can interfere with Hanyu, I figured there would be a clue in something related to Oyashiro-sama, which is why I was reading those old documents. Okay, that's what they were. Yeah, it's been a few days. I was searching for a clue to search for the fragment, basically. I see. I do hope you find it. But if it was a person, what would you do? You wouldn't really kill them, would you? It's hard to answer when you put it like that, but if that was the only way to return to my old world, I might not hesitate. After all, from my world's point of view, this world is just a delusion. A daydream. Whoever dies here, they'll be alive in my world, so it doesn't matter. What if it's him? I see. But hold on a moment. This world might just be a dream to you, but it's the it's the real world for me. It wouldn't be good if someone was killed, no matter who it was. I understand your logic, and I want nothing more than to get out of here without having to kill someone. Let's get back on track. This Hanyu, who tells you about how to go back to your old world. How does she tell you that? Is it something like divine message? Or does she appear in your dreams? No, nothing that vague. I talked to her. There's a crystal ball that acts as a communicator between us. Would I be able to talk to this Hanyu as well? That would be the fastest way. If you could talk to Hanyu directly, that would be enough to prove my nonsense true. But I felt uneasy. Even if I could talk to her, Yamamoto might not be able to. Those kinds of magic items come up pretty often in stories. But maybe it was worth a shot trying. I took the crystal ball out of my pocket. That marble is the communicator? That's what it looks like, right? I thought the same thing. The crystal ball's light was extremely weak. As it got dimmer, it was also taking longer to restore lately. After talking to her several days ago, and the light weakened again, it was having a hard time recovering. This much light wasn't quite enough. It looked like it needed a bit more time to recover. Can you see the light in this marble? I wonder. Maybe it's just reflecting light? But it is very pretty. Is it from a Ramune bottle? I think that's how it's pronounced. Of course not. It's a Furude Shrine treasure, called the Kamu no something, and we should be grateful for it. It's rude of me to say, but I agree that it looks like a Ramune bottle marble to me. I think I know what that is. From the Furude Shrine? So how do you use this to talk to Hanyu? I put it to my forehead. When I do, I can hear her voice. Yamamoto immediately tried. He shut his eyes and let out a low groan. It probably wouldn't work. I couldn't tell if it was because it wasn't me or because the power was too weak. I'm sorry, but I can't hear anything. What about you? It needs to recover a certain amount of power to talk to Hanyu. Let me have it. It doesn't work for me either. You can't hear Hanyu's voice if the crystal ball doesn't have all its power. I pushed it tightly against my forehead, but all I felt was a cool sensation. I couldn't feel the power in it. I see. That's a shame. In a few days, some of the power should return. If you give me time, I'm sure I'll be able to talk to her again. If you let me try again, then... I see. Then once you can talk to her, would you mind letting me talk as well? Yes, of course. At this rate, you'll think I'm crazy in the head, and it will be all over. It will be over, whatever. It would leave a bad taste in my mouth if I didn't clear up such a rude misunderstanding. How long does it take for the crystal ball's divine power to recover? Not much longer, I think. It might even be fine after one more night. Once his power comes back, I'll tell you. Thank you. I'll be waiting. If you do let me talk to Hanyu, how about I help you go back to your old world too? Does that sound good? Really? The simple word help made a deep impression on my mind. If someone other than Hanyu were around to understand me, it would obviously be a reassurance. And with two people, the time it would take to go through the piles of literature would be halved. I'd welcome the help of a cat at this point, so I was really glad. On the other hand, I had to think about what Yamamoto felt. For Yamamoto, right now, I was a dangerous person who said she might even commit murder over a delusion. He was only speaking to me in such an understanding way to try and keep communication going. It didn't mean he actually believed me. But if Hanyu and Yamamoto could talk, it would clear all those fears away. And then he'd have to believe in the supernatural phenomena of Hanyu and me. But the real world didn't usually work out that well. After all, even if I made Hanyu talk to him, it could end in the way it always does, with Yamamoto not hearing anything. I could convey what she was saying, but he wouldn't believe it. But that didn't mean I had the option of not trying. I wouldn't give up before doing it. I'd try everything. Wasn't that the lesson I'd learned from this 100-year journey? Promise me. If you can talk to Hanyu, you have to believe me. Even though all she says is, I'm not sure how that's supposed to be pronounced. And doesn't really act like a god. I promise. If you let me talk to Hanyu, I'll believe your story. But if I can't talk to her, what will you do? I didn't actually think he'd reply like that, and it confused me. What do you mean, what will I do? I promise to believe your story if you win. Then why not promise me that if I win, you'll believe my story? That sounds fair, doesn't it? What story do you want me to believe? Well, I could imagine it without having to ask. He'd probably tell me to go to a largest hospital and have my head given a proper look at. Of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with my head, so it would come up with 0 results. When that happened, maybe they'd say I need to take care of my mind and give me psychotropic drugs or something. I heard this from Rena once before. There's a drug that makes you incredibly lethargic, unable to do or even think anything at all. Dangerous patients think terrible things, and sometimes actually do them. The drug stopped that from happening. If they made me take that, it would be the same as killing me. It might seem like a fair condition, but it looked to me like the scales weren't in my favor to begin with. I shouldn't have told this stuff to a man I barely knew. After all that, I began to regret my decision. Could I fool him with... I said, it was all a joke. Did you believe me? Meepa. Probably not. If that was going to be my last resort, I could use it if my attempt to have Yamamoto and Hanyu communicate failed. I couldn't abandon the possibility that Yamamoto could be my ally without trying first. Then I'll keep a slot open tomorrow just for you, Rika-chan. Does that sound good? He made a suggestion, taking a note out of his coat, and going over his other appointments. I nodded, and said I agreed. He didn't actually say what the wager for his side was. Oh. Okay. Rika-chan, do you have a moment? After school, I was about to head home before the rain started up again. Satoshi called out to me. I looked up and saw Mion and Reina with him. I had been stopped by the upperclassmen brigade. Oh no. Their expressions weren't exactly gentle ones, and I suspected I was in for some sort of punishment after what I did during lunch break. Do you need something from me? Yeah. We wanted to talk to you a little. Oh. About lunch break? Well, that too. I'm sorry for hitting Satoko with the chair and stuff. I spoke the words fine, but didn't bother to hide my glum attitude. Please don't be scared, Rika-chan. We're not here to scold you or anything like that. Then why are you... Well, I'll say it straight. We need to talk about how to get along with everyone from now on. Okay, that's a completely that's a 180. It's just, I just want you to understand something. Some of the responsibility for things end up this way because... Some of the responsibility for things ending up this way belongs to you, Rick. Mion, you didn't have to say that. I think it's an upperclassman's duty to explain these things. Isn't it? This conversation didn't look like it would be a fun one. If I blew them off, it would probably get worse, so I decided to just pretend I was listening. Reina took my silence for me being dispirited, and she started speaking in a much more light-hearted tone. Rika-chan, don't you think it'd be great if you could make friends with everyone and have lots of fun with them? Lots of fun playing with them? So we were thinking about what we could do so you could get along with everyone. Well, everybody. What do you think about that? What do you... I don't know. You might not know this, Rika-chan, but Mion, she collects a lot of games, right? Okay, so that part is definitely not different. Well, it's an old hobby of mine. When I was little, I collected a ton of board games and card games for some reason. I haven't bothered with them at all recently, but I couldn't just get rid of them. So I have the whole lot piled up in storage. She has all these fun games, but she won't play with anyone. So they just collect... They're just collecting dust. What a waste, right? I want to play that British burglar game where the thief puts on sunglasses. I want to try the game where you connect tree branches like building blocks. But all the manuals are in English. That Shion reading those manuals was the only... Oh, that Shion reading those manuals was the only thing she was good at. We could just ask her, but she goes to another school far away. Then we should all try to figure them out together. I'm sure that will be fun. That's true. If we all play by the same rules, then even if we're wrong, it'll still be fair. Well, doesn't that sound fun? We were thinking about starting an after-school game club. A club? For games? Everyone in class can play. Oh. And while you're playing with everyone, I'm sure you'll eventually become part of their circle before you know it, Rika-chan. In other words, this is your upperclassmen being considerate and giving you the chance to fit in. Again, Mion, you don't have to say it like that. I've felt a little sorry for you lately, but I actually think some of your current isolation is your own fault, Rika-chan. My own fault? Reina and Satoshi felt silent after hearing that. I guess everyone in class shares Mion's opinion. My own fault? Of course, though this was about me, I had no idea what they meant by that. They were talking about the Rika Furude before I came. To me, she was the same as a stranger. But to them, it must have seemed like my surprised tone was just me not understanding because I was young. They sighed a little. It was an unpleasant sigh, like they were telling me to look at myself. I wanted to be freed from this as soon as possible. Before everyone moved away, Rika-chan, you were kind of like a princess, weren't you? I was a princess? Yep, a princess. Rika-chan, you were like a princess to that group of boys. You had them wrapped around your little finger. You didn't even need to do anything. You just let them act for you. Do you remember Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun? They seemed to like you a lot, so they'd do whatever you told them to. You just sat on your reputation, unconcerned. And you'd do things like make the boys who liked you compete, so you could always get the best deal, like a war profiteer. Holy crap! She was like Mion in a way. But not completely. A lot of kids didn't think that was very fair. So when those boys all moved out at the same time, by coincidence, and only you were left behind, some of those kids thought you got what you deserved. None of that was about me. Rika-chan, we're talking about you. Please listen to what me-chan is saying. I am. No, you're not. Rika-chan, you think it doesn't have anything to do with you. Am I right? Whether Rina or Reina, she was still just as sharp about the weirdest things. I wanted to believe it was just a wild guess, but she had hit the nail right on the head. Reina, you stop too. I think Rika-chan has thought about it enough already. I wonder. She still hasn't said so. It seems to me like she didn't realize it until we told her. Come on, Stop it. We're not here to bully Rika-chan. We really want her to be friends with everyone, right? That means we all have to work hard to change our relationship with each other. For some reason, I was upset. Because it was as though they weren't talking about Rika Furude, but about me. Me, a princess. There was no guarantee I wasn't one until now. Loved the most of all the club members. Rina and the boys in the class pampering me, laughing at Satoko and Kiichi's failures, as I coolly profited from their conflict. Without giving anything myself, I just greedily devoured the goodwill people poured upon me. They were right. That was me. I hadn't wanted to accept the sad, lonely world and set myself apart. But, of course, they couldn't have actually been talking about me. So, though I didn't know the reason, I was still upset. We were thinking of having Satoko join the club too. She's really stubborn, so she won't say it, but she wants to get along with you, Rika-chan. How does that sound? Do you want to try being in our game club, Rika-chan? I'm sure it will be a lot of fun. Or think of it this way. Do you want to start putting in a little bit of effort to change yourself? Some things might be awkward at first, but I'm sure you'll get along with everyone sooner or later. After all, everyone wants to be your friend. And if you want to be their friend too, then you're both reaching out your hands. I'm sure you'll meet in the middle. And look, we're already reaching out to you. All you have to do is grab hold, Rika-chan. I felt like Kiichi said something a lot like that in some other world. Those words probably made Rika Furude really happy. But that wasn't me. All this only applied to the Rika Furude from before I possessed this body. For me, this world was fake, a dream world, and besides, I was in the middle of a hunt. I didn't have time to hang out with them. But they weren't faking their feelings for Rika Furude, and I found myself without an answer, at a loss for how to respond to them. We were sorry, Rika-chan. To tell the truth, when we went to wash our hands, and you were talking with Yamamoto-sensei in the nurse's office, we might have overheard you a tiny bit. Reina gave me an apologetic look. I never thought others would be listening to that conversation, which must have sounded like garbled nonsense to anyone from this world. I'd understand if it weirded them out and they didn't want to come near me. But I couldn't quite understand why it had resulted in this. The world you were talking about, Rika-chan, it sounds like a really fun world where everyone gets along together. You said you wanted to go back there, right, Rika-chan? So we talked, and thought about how we could bring you back there. Still, it's not like we could call back Tomita-kun and Okamura-kun now that they've moved. Yep. I think everyone wants to go back to that old world. But I think that's definitely impossible. Huh? That startled me. There was no way Reina knew about me and my old world. Even still, her words felt full of meaning, and they echoed in my heart. You can gather all the fragments of the cup together, but they're just fragments. Once it breaks, it can't go back the way it was. But there's more than one cup. It's a shame the cup broke, but you can always look for another one. But if you look down at the broken cup forever, you'll never ever find it. Here's what we mean, Rika-chan. You can't get your good friends who moved away to come back here. So you'll just have to make new friends who are just as good as they were. I think a world like that would be really close to the one you came from, Rika-chan. It wouldn't be exactly the same, of course, but I think it's as close as you're going to get. And by doing that, you can make even stronger relationships than you had before. You know what they say, when it rains, the ground gets harder. Or something like that, anyway. No, when it rains, it pours. Or when it rains, the ground gets mushy. Whatever. What do you think, Rika-chan? We'll help out, so you can make new friends quickly. Would you like to give it a try? Those gentle words would have been tear-worthy if they'd seen... Those gentle words would have been tear-worthy if they'd been said to this world's Rika Furide. But now that I had possessed her, she was gone. The Rika Furide they were talking to was no longer of this world. I thought to myself that I should just give this body back to her. If I did, the me living in this remote parallel universe would have the chance to change her fate and make this world a happy one, if only little by little. If I went back to my old world and gave this leftover body back to Rika Furide, but I couldn't do that, because for me to leave this world would require the same method as returning the fragment from this world to the world of the gods. In other words, my death. Only my death could make me go away. Which meant at the point I took over for Rika Furide, she was the same as dead. But maybe, just maybe, there was one way to return this body to Rika Furide. That would be for me to die in a different way. I wasn't a parasite or anything. In difficult to understand terms, I was an individual personality aware of other universes. Or maybe I should call myself a memory aware of other universes. And that meant that if I could forget about the other worlds, that would represent the same thing as me dying. This world was the only world for Rika Furide, and she would live the best she could in it. If so, I would gradually forget, eventually losing my grasp on which world I had lived in, and try my hardest to live in the world I was in now, which meant that giving up on my previous world and living in this one was possible simply if I decided to do it. Like Reina said, it might be a different world than my old one, but it was the closest I could ever get. It might be a little different from my old world, but the club would still form. In exchange for Kiichi and half our classmates, Satoshi was here. I wasn't best friends with Satoko, But depending on how we interacted in the future, we could at least become regular friends. Hinamizawa would sink underwater in another 6 months, but I could work hard to make new friends in my new home. That cruel destiny wasn't Rika Furude's alone. It was an impartial destiny, shared equally by all who lived in this world. Only I had the luxury of being a special case and jumping between destinies at a whim. I didn't know. Which world should I devote myself to? Reina's words came back to me. A broken cup never went back to normal, and I couldn't find another one as long as I was lamenting the first. What did the cup represent? Cups were for filling with water. The water could probably be called happiness. The cup broke, and the happiness inside was scattered everywhere. The cup was broken, and I was at a loss, unable to fill it with happiness again. But if I could change the way I thought, and rather than be attached to the broken cup forever, fill a new cup with new happiness, it could open the door to a new world. Still, while that world might be smaller, it wouldn't be the same. My heart had weakened, and I'd been discouraged. Wasn't this only so tempting because my search for the key to go back was so difficult? Before, didn't I swear I'd put in any effort I needed to return to my old world? If I broke that oath, Hanyu, gambling on my fate, would be left behind for all eternity, all alone, and I'd be the only one so selfishly happy. While I didn't have any responsibility to make Hanyu happy, she was my ally and partner who stuck with me for 100 years, and my friend. So, even if I wanted to give in to temptation, I'd have to ask Hanyu, which meant, right now, I had no right to answer their proposal. Really? Thank you. I'm very happy. It's alright. We'll protect you. So let's make lots of good memories before we have to leave. No, could you give me time to prepare my feelings? What? What's with that girlish response all of a sudden? It's not like Satoshi just asked you out on a date or anything. Mi-chan, that wasn't necessary. I can understand how she feels, just a little. So we'll wait for you to prepare your feelings, Rika-chan. Thank you. If I do accept, then please let this Rika Furude be one of your friends. I bowed apologetically. Here now, that was the most I could do. After refusing their suggestion that we all go home together, I left on my own. It was Rika Furude's right, not mine, to enjoy going home with them. It wasn't something oh right, because she changed her name to separate herself from Rika. Frederica Berncastle could accept. What was I, anyway? I wondered if any ball could fly into my head like before. I wondered if another ball could fly into my head like before. That was how this world's Rika Furude was possessed by me. So if I got hit again, would I vanish and the pure Rika Furude who lives in this world return? If only I wasn't me, I wouldn't hesitate to take them on their offer. This world truly was far sadder than the one I'd come from. But this world had something all its own, and the opportunity to become happy, a happy world in its own right. If I hadn't known about the other worlds, I wouldn't have been able to contain tears of joy at the mere premonition of happiness I might once again attain. Were these conflicting emotions those of this world's Rika Furude, sleeping inside of me? Those emotions made me angry, and I blamed myself, asking why I'd put their offer on hold and went home all alone. I'm back. Welcome home. My mother always immediately followed that up with a, "Do you have homework?" But not today. "Rika, come into the kitchen." Her voice was vaguely cheerful and light. I wondered what it was. Did she want to surprise me in a good way? But I couldn't remember today being special. A person's expectations sometimes come out in their voice. For the time being, it felt okay to go poke someone's dead. It felt okay to poke my head in. I set down my things and headed for the kitchen. Never mind. When I entered, my mother had already started on dinner, despite it being so early. She was in a good mood. I wonder if something nice happened. Every year at this time, with the Watanagashi festival approaching, she usually got more and more impatient with all the preparations and setup. Knowing all that, my mother's good mood baffled and confused me. I asked if she needed something. When I did, she suggested something I'd never heard even once in this 100 years. I asked if she needed something. When I did, she suggested something I'd never heard even once in these 100 years. "Come over here and help me make dinner. We're having curry today. Let's make something wonderful and surprise your father with it." I didn't like curry that much. But before these 100 years, meaning not me, but Rika Furude, I think she might have liked it. I knew at least that my mother was trying to make her daughter happy in suggesting that she and Rika Furude, not I, make dinner together. I didn't like my mother that much. She was prone to hysterics, and I hated how she always sounded like she was hunting you down when she talked. When she treated me so nicely, my reason for disliking her felt irrational. Wondering why my mother had a change of heart, I decided to go along with it so as not to hurt her feelings. "Then you can peel the potatoes. Can you do it with a knife?" "Actually, that's dangerous, so use the peeler instead." "Okay." I was actually rather good with a knife. I was so good that when I peeled daikon radishes, I could make a long strip of skin at the same time I sliced them. But there was no reason to damage my mother's pride by showing her daughter could use knives better than her. I decided to make her look good for now. My mother had probably been using knives for a decade now, but I'd been using them for many decades. There was an order of magnitudes difference between us. So I wanted to be proud of using a knife better than my mother. I wanted to brag about it, but that might have trampled over her feelings, her want to teach her daughter how to use a knife. Parents are supposed to live longer than their children. But so children respect the living things their parents have learned from So children respect the things their parents have learned from having lived longer than them. But witches like me live longer than their parents and learn many more things. Once again, I'm pretty damn certain this is the only one that calls her that. It's been a while since I've done the others, so. Still, I think I probably never learned what I really needed to. I mean, as long as I generally listened to my mother, she'd never get hysterical. If I didn't feel like respecting her as my senior in life, she wouldn't feel like she needed to act as one either. In the end, all that was left was a cold, uncomfortable relationship between parent and child. If I had acted more like a daughter and pretended to be an ignorant child when I needed to be, maybe my relationship with her would have been more peaceful, like this. Basically, she was Rika Furude's mother, not the mother of the witch who'd lived for 100 years. Thinking about it made it seem obvious she'd be cold to me. Alright, well, let's go ahead and save here, and that'll be it for today. Next time we'll push on from here. I'm not sure how much longer there is for this one. Probably like, I don't know, 1 or 2 more videos. Not sure. But anyways, until next time, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.